Can alcohol cause a panic attack? It's a question I would get asked a lot in practice, and the answer is, unfortunately, yes, for a variety of reasons. Today, we're going to cover the physiology of how alcohol impacts the brain and how it can make you more likely to experience things like anxiety and panic attacks long term. Now, don't take my word for it. If you want to read the science behind how alcohol impacts the brain, a really great paper to start with is one called The Role of GABA Receptors in Mediating the Effects of Alcohol in the Central Nervous System. It was published in the Journal of Psychiatry and Neuroscience, and it gives a really great overview of the things we know alcohol does in the brain. Now, in research papers, we often use the term ethanol to describe the chemical component of alcohol that we study in the human body. Ethanol has a wide variety of impacts on the human brain. But one of the things that it does is act as something called a central nervous system depressant. So it basically turns down the volume on all the chemical processes happening in your brain. That's why it can make things feel slower. It can also turn the volume down on symptoms that you may be experiencing normally that you may not enjoy. Sometimes people start drinking alcohol because they notice it turns down the volume on their symptoms like anxiety or tension. Unfortunately, using alcohol to turn down the volume on your brain long term has really serious side effects, and we have way better means of helping you do this, like herbs and nutrients that won't impact your body negatively long term. For our purposes today, we're going to go over some key ways that ethanol impacts your neurotransmitters, and that is what I want to talk to you about in terms of triggering panic attacks. So, long-term use of alcohol can alter the way your body makes and responds to two important neurotransmitters, glutamate and GABA. Glutamate is really excitatory. It can make you feel excited, but it can also make you feel anxious if you've got too much. GABA, on the other hand, is really calming. Alcohol affects receptors for both neurotransmitters in your brain. Using it long-term can prevent you from responding to either one of them effectively. What that might mean is that you experience more anxiety-producing effects from glutamate and less calming effects from GABA long-term. In fact, many of the pharmaceuticals that we use to treat alcohol use disorder and to help people go through withdrawal from alcohol affect the GABA receptors on purpose because that's a part of the brain we want to target to make sure that we're keeping you safe as you detox. So, how do you use this to your advantage? Well, if you've got panic disorder, it's worth a conversation with your doctor about if and how you should use alcohol. Additionally, if you've been drinking alcohol fairly consistently for a few years, you should talk with a medical professional about how to safely reduce your alcohol intake so that you don't trigger symptoms like a panic attack. Essentially, when you're using alcohol, you trick your brain into thinking you've got more GABA or calming neurotransmitters than you actually do. It can lead to symptoms like irritability and anxiety when you try to stop drinking, and that makes it really hard to stay sober or to reduce your alcohol intake long term. Thankfully, there's a bunch you can do. We already mentioned that with conventional medicine, there's pharmaceuticals you can use to help normalize your brain's response to GABA as you reduce the amount of alcohol you drink. You should absolutely talk with your practitioner about this if it's something that's a concern for you. But understanding the science behind why alcohol impacts your GABA receptors is an important first step. And it's not something we often talk about in medicine. So I'm glad you're here watching this video. The other way that alcohol can predispose you to panic attacks is by affecting your blood sugar. Chronic use of alcohol and binge drinking, and even normal amounts of drinking, can impact the amount of insulin you release and can put you at risk for experiencing episodes of something called hypoglycemia. That hypoglycemia, or low blood sugar, can impact your ability to think. Anyone who's experienced hypoglycemia knows that sometimes it can make you really shaky. Part of that is because when your blood sugar goes low, your body responds to that by producing adrenaline. Adrenaline makes you feel really amped up. But if you don't know why it's being produced, you'll just feel amped up for no reason, which can be interpreted as feeling really anxious. Adrenaline, in fact, is the chemical that we release when we're scared or need to go into fight or flight. So you might be walking around having a normal Tuesday and all of a sudden your blood sugar drops and you feel scared or like you need to go into fight or flight and you're not exactly sure why. That would definitely make you feel anxious. The reason your body's producing adrenaline is because adrenaline is the language your body uses to tell your liver to break down stored forms of sugar called glycogen so that it can pump those back into your bloodstream and bring your blood sugar up. This helps you not feel hypoglycemic, and it can work temporarily to alleviate symptoms of hypoglycemia, but it's not a great method to rely on long term to keep your blood sugar stable. Your adrenal glands have to make adrenaline, and you're not supposed to be producing it a ton. Really, ideally, not even once a day, but certainly not multiple times a day if your blood sugar is going low. Chronic use of alcohol impacts blood sugar balance and makes it much more likely that you'll experience episodes of hypoglycemia. So hopefully it's starting to make sense why using alcohol might predispose you to panic attacks or to feeling anxious. A really cool study that I feel like helps us understand how powerful the effects of alcohol are on the body is titled, Binge Drinking Induces Whole Body Insulin Resistance by Impairing Hypothalamic Insulin Action. It's a study that was published in 2013 in the Journal of Science Translational Medicine. What these researchers found was fascinating. Essentially, after a few days of being exposed to ethanol, animals were resistant to insulin for up to 54 hours. That's more than 2 days. And it only took a few hours of drinking to get them to that point. The impact that alcohol has on your brain and your body and your ability to make insulin and respond to blood sugar appropriately is profound. So one thing you could do if you're wondering if this is an issue for you is to work with your doctor to test things like your blood glucose, your hemoglobin A1C, which is a 3-month snapshot of your average blood sugar, your fasting insulin, and use all of those to calculate something called a HOMA-IR score, which essentially gives you an idea about how insulin resistant you may be. Additionally, you could use something called a continuous glucose monitor, which could help alert you to hypoglycemic episodes you might be experiencing. No matter what, there are so many things you can do to normalize your insulin resistance along with your medical professional if you've got it. So there's tons of hope. If you're someone with type 2 or type 1 diabetes, you should have a really serious conversation with your providers about if drinking alcohol is safe for you. There's a chance it may not be. And remember, if you want to stop using alcohol, make sure you work with a medical professional to determine how slowly you need to taper your drinking to stay safe while you do so. In fact, there's some programs that actually help people do this while you're being monitored by medical professionals. Your doctor can help you determine what way of quitting alcohol or reducing your intake is right for you. So hopefully this video has helped you understand the answer to the question, can alcohol cause panic attacks? By really educating you about insulin resistance and ethanol use, ethanol's impact on the brain and 2 major neurotransmitter signaling systems, glutamate and GABA, and how that would lead you to feel more anxious and experience more frequent episodes of hypoglycemia, both of which are known to contribute to anxiety and panic attacks. If you want more content on anxiety, alcohol use, and the root causes of many medical disorders, hit that like button and subscribe button and stay tuned for our next video.